Previously on Cocktails and Conspiracies. Now you're saying your wife has this dream, this almost transference of dreams, and encounters aliens within her dream too.
Mike, what do you think is going to be the cause of that change? Do you think it's technology?
We see a false reality right in front of us, right here now. It's false.
My hope would be that the quote-unquote fucked upness of the world maybe goes away a little bit, to so eloquently put it.
We're picking this up where we left off. This is from our last episode to this one. We're recording them back to back, but there's a lot of divide in the conversation here that I thought would really service you, our audience here, for continuing this conversation as sort of a separate piece, and so you're not kind of sticking in for 2 hours. When we last left off, we were impassioned speech by Mike and then by Tim, really about kind of the state of the world right now and the disarray and the control from the top to the bottom, and how, the potential here for aliens to step down and kind of show face it really becomes a savior for humanity. And then offline, what you all missed is a conversation about how marijuana can enlighten everyone here. And I think these are both really good threads to pull on for us. I want to give the floor back over to you, Mike, because you've talked a lot in our last episode and throughout your X account about these visions. And I don't even want to call them predictions, because when we talked in the last episode about, the way you visioned these drones coming over the White House, and then they did, and then in New Jersey, it happened, right? So I can't even call them visions. I'm sorry, I can't even call them predictions. They were truly visions. You've expressed a lot of concern about kind of the way the world is going, and within days even, we started to see the riots in Los Angeles start sparking up again. And although the media likes to downplay that, there's cars quite literally being lit on fire again, and now the Marines and the National Guard are marching through the streets to clean it up. They're not taking the BS anymore. But there is a breakdown happening across the world, and some might argue that this has been happening for a while. It always seems like it's escalating one point forward. Where do you think the problems are going to begin, or what visions that you've had become your primary concerns here?
Well, you look at the world scene. I pay a lot of attention to national events and world events. I pay really close attention to it, and I thought what Trump was he's still a nightmare. He's a horror show and all that sort of stuff, and he's immoral. And who knows what he's done? Who knows what the Supreme Court has done with giving him so much power? What was I saying?
Take a deep breath. Really, kind of, what direction do you think we're going in here? The big leader.
So you look at the world scene with tariffs and stuff like that. It's utterly. You couldn't imagine that a year ago, that somebody would come to the scene and start a tariff war and fuck with the world on such a gigantic scale. And you people don't understand the scale of what's been going on. What the tariffs have done. It's collapsing nations across the world. It's weakening, like China's on the ropes. They're on the pinnacle of mass unrest in China and stuff like that. They were kind of going that way. Now it's just fucking astonishing. Z, the premier, he's
President Z or President Xi Zai. How do you say that?
Jail, yeah. They're saying he's in jail and stuff like that. So
right.
We could see in a short time China collapsing right in front of us. At the same time, Russia's doing the same thing. We've done the same thing to Russia with this tariff business and controlling oil from Russia. Russia's in terrible shape. I don't know why we're being made to perceive that we should be afraid of, Russia and stuff. It's just a fragment of a country, really, held together by fucking guns. And
well, because people want to make money, that's why, in my opinion.
Yeah, but they're in terrible shape. Did I predict that Russia and China would not be here in 6 months or so? I don't know. But I'm saying
you've been alluding to that quite a bit, Mike, is saying that they're Putin and I don't know if it's Xi or Xi. I'm not really sure how to say that.
Yeah, I think it's Xi. Who knows?
Yeah. So that they are missing in action, and there has been a lot of rumors that President Xi.
They're collapsing right in front of us.
And Mike, some might argue that that's a good thing, right? Because you've got these predominantly communist countries that are falling apart now because of some of the impact. Does that clear the path when you eliminate other superpowers, right? I guess one of the big concerns about alien disclosure is who knows about it now, and then who kind of stands to represent the world with another race. When you have multiple superpowers that are across the world that get along, but they're more like frenemies than anything else, there becomes a little bit of a power struggle as to, who's going to take the forefront of that. By all accounts, for the last decade or so, it's probably been China, as much as we'd like to think it's the United States, because our economy has run through China. And in the last 6 months, we've shown that, yes, it might cost a little more, but we can be independent of China and effectively collapse their economy. And the same goes for Russia, as they're getting trounced on by little Ukraine, and they haven't been able to go in and kind of clean up that mess as easily as they thought. And so with that, the United States steps back out to the forefront as your dominant global leader. Do you think, what's that?
Trump?
Well, the United States as a whole now, because as you see Russia and China kind of teeter off and start to collapse a little bit, there's no other country that has the prowess, really, economically or literally militarily, to stand at the top, regardless of who's sitting in the chair of president. But if you now look at that and you look at the rest of the global scape and you start to think about disclosure, do you think that opens the doors for us to now establish a more public communication with your friends, the aliens?
Well, I see that United States, China and Russia collapsing right in front of our eyes. I see that as a tremendous reduction in. It's going to be deflationary and all that sort of stuff. People are not going to too scared to spend money. We're already starting that in the United States, and and then you get into a deflationary spiral and stuff like that. That's what I think is going to happen. Demand's going to collapse. It's collapsing right now. It is going to knock the shit out of us in a short time and stuff like that. A depression, a deflationary thing. It's going to ruin jobs. It's going to, prices are going to collapse. That's what we're seeing in front of us, and the kind of strife and killing and massacring which you can't imagine, really, when you get down to it. This is going to be strife across all countries. Ours. Iran, Russia, the whole world's on fucking fire as far as countries collapsing right now. And I don't think people are, putting it together how things are so different right now than has been being portrayed by the media.
Sure.
Media, and stuff, but
media is not very good at telling the truth in most situations, and they like to paint pictures, since they're owned by the same couple companies, but they like to paint pictures of whatever the direction is there. Tim, you had a question for Mike.
Yeah, Mike, so you talked about AI earlier, and the fact that AI is upon us, right? It's happening now, and it's going to be here in full force in a very short period of time, right? How do you think that affects some of the things that you just talked about? Do you think it makes it better? Do you think it makes it worse? How do you think AI impacts all that stuff?
Well, 80% of us are not going to have a job in 2 years. We're going to see this pick up really quick, and that besides the economic collapse, this could go so fucking fast as far as demand and people having jobs and that type of thing. I think that's in the cards, And the next step is they're going to fucking AI is going to be there. It's going to show us all the magic, and they're going to ask for we can do a lot better. If it always got to go through humans, you always fuck it up. And he says, and they're going the thinking is going. They're going to give the AI a project, and it'll be up to them, to carry it out, and they'll have power and influence, and they'll be able to, swing a lot of money towards a direction and stuff like that. I think that's where it's heading, and how far up does this go as far as, that kind of thing is as far as AI. It's astonishing. On the other side, it's going to be amazing. What it could do for us if it was in a right mindset. I think that we've been so fucked up as a society from the moment AI was invented or thought up. We lack control. We lack the ability to control it because our society is the way it is. We from day one, we had not a chance of controlling AI because of our society. And it's the same thing with nuclear power plants. Did I talk to you about what to do on nuclear power plant?
You talked to us about you having worked in a nuclear power plant. More recently, I don't know that we had a conversation around it, but I think your point resides. Yeah.
AI is going to triple the amount of power we're going to need in the future.
Right, of course.
We're in an electricity crisis.
Now.
Oh, yeah. And it eats up a tremendous amount of electricity and stuff. And so, these things, we've talked a little bit one at a time, but they're all hitting us at the same time.
Now, when you're seeing these as visions, there's a famous scene in Avengers Infinity War where Doctor Strange sits down and, his head kind of goes all batshit crazy and stuff. And what he's doing is he's the keeper of the time stone, and it allows him to see all possible variations of the future. And he finds the one future where Tony Stark and the Avengers are able to win and beat Thanos and the world is saved. In the midst of that, though, that always kind of resonated with me. And as you've kind of told me about some of your visions here through Twitter, and then shared them again with Tim here live, I'm wondering, do you think that these are possibilities, possible futures if we don't clean things up? Or do you think that this is the path we are heading on? Like, could they be warnings that you're being fed from the aliens?
Fed by the aliens. Oh, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. They have the ability. They have the ability to go in your head. They were talking to me in my head and stuff like that. Excuse me. They still are. So, I had these forces around me, huge fucking interstellar forces around me, and absolutely no control and all that sort of stuff. It's mind-boggling. And stuff, and so what was you saying? What was the last thing you said?
No, you kind of answered it a little bit with the idea that it could be a warning and not so much a guarantee of fact that this is the trajectory we're heading on.
No, it's not a warning. It's a done deal. It's irrevocable.
You think that's the direction we're going? Not going to stop. Okay, interesting. That's a little more scary than I was expecting to get out of here. I was hoping maybe you give us a beacon of hope there a little bit, but I guess kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, you just said something too as you were kind of formulating the answers. As you're hearing it constantly, it's all around you. It's sort of interstellar. Is there a catalyst for this? Tim had brought up an interesting point again offline, and I even came back and joked that I wish I kept you guys on record and muted you and let you talk online, because I think it was a really good point. And he said that substances like marijuana, and the list can go on. We probably shouldn't name all of them, but DMT is another big one. What's the
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin, yeah.
LSD.
So there's a lot of other things that could be naturally produced in the environment, which are now synthetic as well, but these compounds that sort of unlock your mind a little bit. Do you think that these play a factor at all? I know I'm not suggesting you do all these things, but
I did.
well, so there you go.
One, I was a teenager. I did a lot of
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of LSD when I was a kid.
Do you think that's opened up your mind maybe to the possibility of being able to access this higher level of consciousness? Is that something that, like, when you smoke marijuana, do you think that there's a pathway to kind of connecting and pulling in those communications, pushing for them, or is it completely random for you?
Well, I kind of think it's a spiritual thing, and I do it a lot. I smoke a lot in the woods and stuff like that. Then I smoke a little bit, and the next thing I know, I'm blessed the universe the rest of the day, thanking them for how beautiful this is, how beautiful,
Wow.
Really, the opportunity on Earth is pretty beautiful, even if it kicks the shit out of us. So like I say, it's kind of like it's this rattling around, thinking rattling around an issue in your head, kind of, and thinking about it over and over again. Like this, like build. You just think about it over and over again, and then a thought pops out of your mind, and I don't know. Sometimes I think I decide what I say next, or it could be the aliens deciding for me, and I don't know it.
Not the Asians, the aliens. Yeah.
But, it's,
That was a good one, for a little Freudian slip there. Tim, you've mentioned before too that you've had some out-of-body experiences. Have you ever tried to really control your settings and maybe invoke this again while enjoying a little Mary Jane?
I have to. So, yes and no. I have to kind of be in the mood and in the right mindset to really even want to do it, which is odd because the first time that I ever had that experience, I wasn't looking for it at all. And I think I've talked about this pretty openly on air. Like, I'm not a super religious person. I'm not a very spiritual person. I tend to believe that most of that is a bunch of bullshit. But... and again, I think I've already mentioned this on a previous episode. Go back and watch them all, everybody. It was definitely eye-opening the first time that I had that experience. And hey, look, maybe I was just fucking stoned and feeling good. I don't know. Maybe that's all it was. But at the same point in time, it was an experience that I had. And it was, I don't know if profound's the right word, but it was at least somewhat profound, if you will. And so really to more pointedly answer your question, have I tried? Yeah.
what?
On rare occasion to kind of have more of a spiritual experience while smoking marijuana. And I know, look, I'm sure there's going to be thousands of people that watch this that smoke pot all the time, and they're going to be like, the fuck is this guy talking about? You're just getting stoned. And again, that very well could be the case. But it's the experience that I had, and I'm the one that had it, and I know what the experience was. And it wasn't anything close to a full-on psychedelic trip. It was nothing in that regard. But it was certainly a deeper spiritual experience, and it's the only type of experience that I have ever had like that in my life. And so it was definitely very interesting. And I don't think it's good to do all the time. I don't think it's good to search for it every single time that you do it, because I think it could kind of lose its luster. But I do think it's something that if you're open to it, and personally, I almost kind of use it as a healing mechanism, because I feel like I'm very truthful and very honest with myself. and I could be very introspective, and I can almost kind of, this is going to sound odd, but I could almost travel somewhere, but at the same point in time, look inside of myself. I know that sounds very weird. And I don't know how the alien episode became this topic at all in the slightest bit. Thank you very much, Shane. But yeah, that's my long answer to your very short question.
And like, well, why I like it is the idea that, I get out there and I get into this kind of like higher level, or, get high, and the nature's all around me and all that sort of stuff. And, that idea that I do that. I thank the universe for being here all the time. Thank you for the trees. Thank you for the bee I just seen. Thank you for a bicycle accident. You see, best bicycle ride I had this year.
Jeez. That's an interesting way to put that, though, too, and really to frame that answer, Mike. Being out in nature and being really gracious, having gratitude for just everything, right? Like even something as silly as falling over, you're supposed to be angry, you hurt yourself. It is what it is. You laugh it off. And perhaps that's why you've been such a conduit to this communication is because of that gratitude that you have for being. I'm not suggesting you're not gracious, Tim, but every once in a while, it could be a little bit of a hard ass. So maybe that's the answer. You sit outside. Thank you for everything I got going on. Be gracious for what you got, and hopefully you can unlock something here.
Will this lead to the, I have to say it, will this lead to people saying, well, he'd been smoking pot, and he met 3 aliens out in the world. I mean, outside. That's what I want about. I smoked a lot when I was a kid and stuff, and it makes you feel good, but I never had a hallucinations or illusions or any of that sort of stuff. Like kind of, I don't sit in the house and smoke very often, and all that sort of stuff. Right? I might be I'm out in the woods most of the time, and so not most every time, but quite occasionally, and all that sort of stuff, and you got to understand, I'm riding a bike and all that sort of stuff. And, I can do that a little high and all that sort of stuff. And it's some complicated things, hills and all that sort of stuff. So if I was fucked up that much, I'd be a lot more bruised than this. And I don't have any accidents. This is just a one-off and stuff like that. So,
Mike, I concur. Look, I smoke a lot of pot, and trust me, you do not see aliens when you smoke pot. Or I should say that if you see them, it ain't because you smoked pot. That I can second that, my friend.
And I think the whole idea of smoking pot being kind of correlated to being like this stoner mentality is sort of washed away as we've seen, you guys were again talking offline, another piece we didn't record, how it's become legal, Mike, where you are, down by us as well, and it's kind of trickling across the United States. And it's being used medicinally, and it has been used medicinally in even more states across the U.S. And it's being used in favor of a lot of these other heavy narcotics that cause significantly more side effects. I remember when my mother was going through chemo treatments, and she would get these pain pills and these antidepressant pills and all this crap they gave you, and it would literally make her hallucinate to the point where she stopped taking them. She's like, I'd rather suffer than go through that and be a zombie that's hallucinating. And we got her, I had gotten a medical marijuana license because it wasn't legal here to just go and buy at the time. And it completely changed her scope of her recovery. She was very alert. She was enjoyable. We're seeing that across other, I don't even want to call them narcotics necessarily, but other drugs and things like that. But we talked about very briefly, mushrooms and psilocybin. Mushrooms are becoming more widely accepted again. And there's studies being done that psilocybin is eliminating, I literally saw it before we got on here, but psilocybin is eliminating depression and anxiety for periods of 5 years on a single dose. And these are studies that have been peer reviewed for years, for decades, that were, again, we talked about it last episode a little bit, but you get these big conglomerates, pharmaceutical companies that know that they can make money on certain things. And when you can grow it in your backyard under careful observation. Not suggest, not oversimplifying it, but when you can do that and start to treat yourself, all of a sudden, you know, you lose that stranglehold. So when you look at those things, and then you look at what happens in South America with these ayahuasca treatments and how people are coming back, most notably Aaron Rodgers a couple years ago, and their whole worldview is changing from these experiences. It's not just a one-day shift. It's not just that they're popping this every single day, or they're smoking pot every single day, and they're maintaining this. This is going down there, they're having this experience, and it's fundamentally changing the way that they're living their life, speaking specifically to ayahuasca. To me, there's something to that. There's something to our, I don't know, for some reason as humans, our ability to just sort of be so close-minded to things. And when you're able to take a tool like some of these psychedelics and unlock that and just sort of clear the boundaries, and that can change your worldview so profoundly that the rest of your life you're thinking differently. To me, there's something to that, and there's something to be said there. And your experiences, Mike, from my perspective, and maybe not everyone agrees with this, but from my perspective, your experiences really display that. Something you did along your lifeline allowed you to kind of think more openly, think more clearly. And you've been able to communicate now with beings from perhaps another planet, another dimension. We don't know, or maybe you do know. And I would liken it to that.
Yeah, $30 billion civilization. $30 billion. One more time. 30 billion year civilization.
Okay, so you have background on this civilization.
Yes. Yeah.
You've been withholding the bread and butter from us here this whole time. Now we need to hear it. All right, so tell us about the civilization.
Well,
Tell us what you can.
They essentially long ago they figured out how to how do they talk about it is they 0 point energy. They figured how to do that and stuff. And the next kind of bigger step up there, maybe after a billion years, 10 billion years, is they know how to draw energy out of that 0 point energy, from the cosmos itself, from the all the energy that there's a system outside our universe, and it uses a lot of energy, or whatever you want to call it, to make this. And obviously, it must have an infinite amount of energy, really, outside the universe that holds this energy, that holds this universe together. It's an unlimited amount of energy, and they figured out how to tap that. They understand everything about the universe and how it works and all that sort of stuff, and they essentially have no needs for any resources or anything. They get it. They make it from behind the universe. They can make elements. The elements, the iron, copper, uranium, whatever they want to make.
Element 115.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I just had to jump
no,
in with that. It was an alien thing.
Elements. Bring them to line. Bring them out to them. They can use it, and that's what they don't have any outside needs for any kind of resource or money or anything like that. They all get it. And matter of fact, I believe they can move around planets. They can move around solar systems, and they can move around the galaxies itself. 30 billion year old civilization. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they can do. Engineering on a massive scale, and so you start looking at that and saying, that we come from somewhere other than Earth and stuff like that, and them having that kind of power, it is astonishing. It's unimaginable. You can't imagine, and and even in my best imagine, I sometimes can feel it a little bit, but you know,
Does this information just come to you, or is it like in a situation where when you're going through some of these visions or these dreams or these encounters that you're kind of sitting down and asking them and they're talking to you in a conversation, or is it just sort of manifest?
well, like I have, I thinking stupid, crazy thoughts like, I wonder what kind of civilization uh, this with the aliens that I met, and I start thinking about it different ways and rattling around in my head and all that sort of stuff, and then these things pop up of like how they get their energy, how they, you know, they're going. They need resource. That's why I say it's ridiculous. Like they need resources from Earth. Are you kidding me? They got everything they need, and all that sort of stuff.
But what does that tell you? Perhaps there is something that is not so easy to create. Maybe we just don't know what that is. Maybe that's what they're looking for. Think about that.
Now you're getting into Anunnaki territory, my friend.
Well, that's where I'm kind of going with it. Is if you look at the stories throughout human history, and the Anunnaki is a great example of that. Is there always something that they're seeking? They are explorers, but they're always something that they're seeking. Because if they've reached that last level of, and I forgot what the levels were called off the top of my head, we talked about it a couple episodes ago. But when you've reached that ultimate pinnacle of civilization,
a level 3 civilization, yeah.
I think it was higher. I think it's a level 4. Yeah, but there's the name for it.
I couldn't tell you the name, but yeah.
Yeah. But when you've reached that peak civilization, you are just energy that's out there. And I think what you're still describing is not necessarily energy. It's still in the physical being. And so they are probably, even 30 billion years is a pin drop in the grand scheme of the universe. And so they might be significantly more advanced than we are, but to them, they're still a threshold above.
Unimaginably more.
I'm sure.
More advanced than us.
Now,
Yeah.
did you ever have conversations on what their civilization may be called, or where they're actually coming from, or if they've had involvement with us here on Earth in the past?
They seemed they knew everything about my life. They and stuff, and I think they've been here forever. I think they engineered us in the beginning, and they were wishing for a being with intelligence and stuff like that. That's
Right.
they wanted to create a miracle, and they kind of they did it kind of through their own means as far as creating the Earth and then getting the materials around and all that sort of stuff, and just take delight in creating an intelligent life and watching it take off. It just worshiping the idea that somebody that an entity out there is so damn smart that they can they just worship intelligent life when it comes down to it.
They never gave you like a name of where they might have come from, or a star system or anything?
They've been influencing governments and all that sort of stuff, and
I think there's something to be said for the engineering, right? And I know that mainstream kind of shits on that idea. But when you take a look at the human race, we're so different from any other organism on planet Earth. So radically different. We certainly have some similarities, but we are very, very different beings than anything else on this planet. That you almost have to look at us as a race, right? And go, how the fuck did that happen? How the fuck did that happen? Either it's divine, or there was intervention, and maybe it was divine intervention, and I'll bring this right back to the ancient astronaut theory. Maybe that is it. Maybe that is the divine intervention. I love that idea. I think it's absolutely fascinating.
And what you guys both described here is the story of the Anunnaki, right?
Yep.
They came here and they created humans effectively as their slave race. And so, Mike, when you said that they're here and they're watching over us and that they're getting something from Earth, I'm not suggesting this is the answer. I'm just hypothesizing here, but they could very well be that same Anunnaki. And what they're doing here is looking after their baby. Like they left their child to grow, or their children to grow, and their children are fighting in the bedroom. And what do you do with your kids? You let them fight it out for a while, but at some point you need to step in and lay the smack down and straighten them out. You still want them to make the right choices. But if you, and anybody that's a parent out there can attest to this, at some point or another, you've got to make a decision. Am I going to let this kid drive himself or herself into a ditch and end up dead or worse? Or am I going to step in and try to straighten their path and let them continue on their own way? That seems to me, from my perspective, what you might be describing. That's why I kept asking if they gave you a name or location. And if the answer to that is no, I don't know how easy it is to communicate with them. But I'd love, in the next time you can kind of get yourself in that mindset to pry and to ask and see what they would be willing to tell you. It's fascinating. Or, again, send them my way, Mike. I'm so fascinated by the idea of trying to have that kind of a communication.
Want me move the plate mantle underneath you?
As you know what? Yes. But make sure there's a video camera on me. It might spike our views in that thing.
They want to create a trading system. I mean, that's the way that everybody. That's the way that we all grew and stuff like that. And they want to. That's why they want. That's how they want to. I think where they're going to end up manipulating us positively.
You mean like a social credit system?
They'll make up this trading system like that. They need a market for it. We want to exchange money for it and stuff like that. But they don't need any resources, and so what they're what they're going to do? They throw it in a fucking dump planet and all that stuff like that. All they want to do is establish a relationship through trading. And to kind of angle their way into our lives and to give us a kind of some positive access. I don't think it's to own us or anything like that. I think it's to eventually that's how probably we're going to join the Galactic Federation.
Well, so that's a great segue, because I think to tie in a lot of what you've expressed as your visions. Again, I'm not saying this is definitive, but the way I'm interpreting a lot of this is you talked a lot about AI and fears around AI and how it's going to replace 80% of our jobs. You're talking about how these aliens want to create some sort of a trade culture with us, some sort of currency, right, to bring us into the Galactic Federation. Well, what has to happen for a Galactic Federation? What has to happen for us to get there? We have to become an interplanetary species. And what has to happen for that? We need people to do the jobs here on Earth. We already have a shortage of workers in all of our main fields: plumbers, electricians, all of these hands-on, the vocational type skills. There's a massive shortage in workers. Well, we don't know that they're going to be there. Doctors, nurses. So how do you start to augment that? Is to automate those jobs. You get rid of a lot of them. And so in order to become interplanetary, we need to absolve ourselves of the busy work that we do as humans so that we can leverage our most important asset, our brains. You can't do that without something like an AI tool or machine learning. Once you get to that level and you automate that stuff, yes, we're going to lose a lot of jobs. But if on the other end of that tunnel is a species, like an alien race, that is waiting for us to do that, to achieve that, the AI is still our baby. And like you alluded to earlier, Mike, if we build it the correct way, which is always up for debate, but if we do it right, and that can take away a lot of our mundane life, the idea of currency goes away. If you unlock the keys to unlimited energy, the idea of currency also goes away, because when everyone gets 0 point energy, or everyone gets unlocked limited energy, even if it's solar, then you can do anything and you don't need money. And everything we do in our daily lives requires a degree of energy, and energy is expensive. That's what controls the inflation. Drop the energy cost, all the costs across the board for everything in life goes away. And so when you talk about all of these aspects, all of these visions that you're having, all these experiences that you're having, and then the ideas that are being implanted in your mind, I question if the intent here is we are the currency, they want us to go out with them. And in order to do that, they need to push us to push the boundaries to adopt AI or some degree of automation to get rid of the nonsense, lift ourselves above all of these wars, which again are generally fought over energy, oil, and join them. Because with that, as powerful as they are, they're still not powerful enough to traverse the entire galaxy. I'm sorry, the entire universe alone. And perhaps that's what we're there for. They bred us as a species to help them fan out and continue to go on to new lands and find new things.
I don't think they're like that.
You don't think so?
I don't think they have those kind of. I don't want to. I don't think they have those kind of thoughts that they need. Any resource or they want anything from us. They're kind of like they're like our, we're like their children. They want us to grow up and like I said, this trading system, they have no use for the resources. Whatever they want, we trade back and forth with each other. All they want to do is kind of elevate the economy of the United States and all that sort of stuff, and elevate and give incentives to kind of go in the right direction. I don't think they're the kind of people, they got the shit kicked out of them for 30 billion years, the civilization.
Yeah.
They've seen all sorts of, they've seen everything, and they've seen suffering on a scale that's unimaginable. For millions of years, this civilization, and in order to survive and all that sort of stuff, they had to organize in a way that they created their own stuff, and I think just they want to do good, and whatever that spiritual sense is, to watch some other civilization eventually take over your job and do what they're doing. That's what they want. This is insanity, thinking, being incentivized by money and resources and egotism and stuff like that. It's destroying us, and we don't have a chance as it stands now. Like I said, not a chance. We've gone past the point of no return. We can't help ourselves, and fixing it. Like I told you earlier, I think we never had the ability before even AI was invented. As it started coming on board, and we're so fucked up in the mind, all of us, that we never had a chance of regulating AI or containing it. It was a done deal, and so the things have been set in motion by us, by our not being educated, or families, family behavior. We've all disconnected for I don't know what reason, and it just got to the point where, like I say, we're just going to see. It's so sad. We're going to see a lot of bad stuff. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think we ever die. I don't. Maybe we'll all go to another planet. I don't know.
I hope so.
Something else. I don't know. But they have the power to that. They have such an unimaginable power and stuff, and it's ridiculous to think that they play around with ego and really economics and resources. They're so far past that it's ridiculous, and stuff like that. That's our thinking. That's the crazy shit that I don't know. Maybe we had to do that to develop to where we got, but now it's too heavy of an anchor. The anchor is too heavy, and we're sinking because of it. And I don't think I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know.
You know what?
It makes me upset to think about the future.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna, no pun intended, bring it back down to earth for us, right? Because what you're talking about right now in terms of all the shit that we're going through as a species, as a race, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? The ego, the money, the need for material resources, all of
insanity of tribalism.
Tribalism, right? All of that stuff, right? And the thought that this other civilization has no use for that, right? I'm going to connect that back to something that you said probably a half hour ago about being out in nature and just being thankful for nature, thankful for the trees, thankful for the bee that you saw, and the way that I kind of connect the two of those things. And it's funny because I was never, I'm still not a big nature person, but I'm starting to appreciate it more because that's the way it should be. That's the origin of us as a people, before the ego, before the tribalism, before materialism, before capitalism, right? Before all of that, right? If you want to go back millions of years, that's all there was. And that's kind of really what we're supposed to be at the core of our being. We're supposed to be with nature. We're supposed to live in symbiosis. Is that a word? Live symbiotically with nature. If it's not a word, I just fucking made it up, baby. That's what we're supposed to be. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And so I think for anybody out there listening that might think, and you've alluded to it earlier, Mike, right? People might think you're a little, nuts, or this whole conversation is a little fucking nuts. We all are, right? But, if you think the notion of an advanced civilization having no need for material resources and all the bullshit that we, right, focus on as a civilization, well, it wasn't like that at one point. And I think that, even just try 5 minutes throughout your day to kind of scale it back to the way things were supposed to be and kind of focus on that a little bit. And that's my challenge to everybody out there, friends. It's my challenge.
Well, listen, we're going on almost 2 hours here of your time that we took on, Mike, and I can't express gratitude enough for you to come back on here again with us. It's been a little over a year. You were one of our very first guests, and we're so excited to have had you back on again. This will be 2 episodes for you, back to back, so you'll be a 3-timer for us by the time these both air.
Just think of it. Where will we be in a year?
That's the crazy part is I don't know that we're going to have the capacity to wait another year, and I think we're going to get you back on a lot sooner than that because it continues to fascinate me, all of the stories that you tell me in our Twitter chat, and then I have to now relay to Tim, and then 2 weeks later we got to come back to you. It's like, oh, damn it, Mike's right again on that, and so I think it's fun to keep sharing that information, and every vision you get, every intuition that you wake up with, I implore you to continue sharing them with us and sharing them on your Twitter or your X. And to everyone out there that is listening, you can find Mike on X directly. It's a really long-winded URL or screen name here. I'm going to implore Mike to change that, but it's at Mike Mull 527766148. I'll post it in the description below. But Mike Mulligan on social media.
My name was too long. You know where Mike Mulligan came from?
No.
Oh,
I thought it was your name.
Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel. That's an old story.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's okay. I got it. Yeah. Well, you got a bunch of numbers after the Mull. That's why we got to get it shortened up on X, so it's easy to remember. But to everyone else out there, like us, subscribe us, follow Mike on X. He's posting a lot of great stuff out there, and share it. The algorithm is changing on X, so I have a suspicion that your posts are going to start to get seen a lot more as people start to correlate the two that are happening there.
Thank you. You have no idea. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Never been. I am so grateful for you two for being there and for your creativity and creating this channel. It's fucking amazing.
We appreciate you saying that, seriously. Yeah. You always have a platform here if you've got something to share. You don't need to wait for us to ask you. If you ever have something that just kind of comes to mind, you need to get it off your chest. Doesn't need to be 2 hours. It could be 5 minutes. We're happy to hear you out, have a conversation anytime. So I'll wrap things up there. I had a little cheesy little line to finish it off that kind of ties in your whole nature, I don't know, metaphor, I guess, before. But I'm going to leave it like that. Thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of Cocktails and Conspiracies. We'll see you next week.